everybody to this latest version of a chat with a superhuman being, someone that we admire, someone that's done fantastic things, someone who's a friend to the RDLC, someone who absolutely stole the show in Ibiza last year. I sent him my glasses, but he's giving Dean all the credit. Unbelievable. In the 1970s, 9 out of every... well done, Gerald. 9 out of 10 pieces of jewellery that people bought off of the high street, this man had a hand in. Multiple brand strategy. You might have 6 different jewellery stores down the high street. He probably owned every one of them. And a legend and a darling of the city all the way through this, making an absolute fortune. And one funny presentation, I think still today, Gerald, that you harbour an instinct to be a stand-up at some point and a comedian. One of the funniest guys as well, by the way, at the Royal Albert Hall, made Gerald Ratner, become an adjective for doing a big corporate faux pas. So I think you've been mentioned in the House of Commons, the House of Lords. It's kind of, never a month goes past or someone's not mentioned Stuart Ratner. However, the man behind the myth is an absolute legend, and we are absolutely delighted to welcome to this RDLC Open invite the man, the myth, that is Gerald Ratner. Should we have a little round of applause?
Oh, Georgia.
It's a beautiful day for fishing.
Thank you, Mr. President, for asking me to address such a prestigious audience.
Ratner's is one of the major entrepreneurial successes of the 1980s.
This morning, you may have read that yesterday we announced profits of £120 million.
A fact that's largely due to Gerald Ratner's management skills and strategic thinking.
We even sell a pair of earrings for under £1. Gold earrings as well. And some people say, well, that's cheaper than a prawn sandwich from Marks and Spencer's. But I have to say, the sandwich will probably last longer than the earrings, but anyway.
Ratner's great success has been to extend jewellery buying into a whole new social class. The technique is brutally simple. A drastic reduction of price sustained by high volume turnover.
We also do this nice sherry decanter. It's cut glass, and it comes complete with 6 glasses on a silver-plated tray that your butler could bring you in and serve you drinks on. And it's really only cost £4.95. People say to me, how can you sell this for such a low price? I say, because it's total crap.
The jewellery chain Ratner's is closing 180 of its British stores.
Ratner's is to close a further 54 shops with a loss of 150 jobs.
How would you describe that? Total crap?
I wouldn't describe any of the products that we sell as crap or total crap.
Yes, you did.
And if there's any tips in my story that may be of help to you, please go ahead and use them.
That's a brilliant video. But buddy, at the time that you did that that speech, how big was the Ratner's empire?
Yeah, just to remind you, Gary, that was nearly 30 years ago. It seems like yesterday. It was tomorrow, I'd cancel it. Now, we were really on the crest of a wave at the time. As you heard, we just announced £121 million profit. We were defying the recession. We had 2,500 shops, including 1,000 in America, and we were one of the few, or probably the only retailer, to be successful in America, because it was a graveyard for British retailers, still is, because it's such a different market. But we were succeeding in America. We had branches like groups like H. Samuel in the middle of the market. We had Watch of Switzerland at the top, because everyone always just thinks of us as just Ratners. We had Ernest Jones, Leslie Davis, we had 50% of the jewellery market. The brokers were going for £200 million profit in the current year, which we were on course for, which, when you think that was 30 years ago, that's well over £1 billion profit just from jewellery. So it was phenomenally successful. Everything was going well. And then I made a joke about a sherry decanter, which everybody interpreted as, like I said it about the jewellery, but there's no point in arguing the toss. If you say one of your products is crap, and people assume everything's crap. And from then onwards, everything went downhill, unfortunately. And, I thought we'd get over it. I thought it would just blow over, but it never did blow over. It got worse and worse. And I just kept saying to myself, how the hell could this have happened over such a stupid thing as a joke about a sherry decanter? But it did. And I haven't blamed anybody for it other than myself. I know, the press are what they are. They're disingenuous. They wrote a load of stuff that's not true, and they still do to this day. But I shouldn't have given them the ammunition. So I put my hands up to that. And, even today on Twitter, I think it was Yorkshire Tea made some comment. I've had about 25 people tweeting, comparing it to, they did a Ratner. So every day somebody does a Ratner.
Don't you wish you trademarked that? Because that would have been worth a few quid as well.
Yeah, I could do. I mean, in fact, in the Mail on Sunday, somebody described the British transport, Boris Johnson talking about the London transport as the Ratnerisation of London transport. He created the Ratnerisation. So who knew that was a word?
That's tenuous. Interesting. Why didn't you? You were the darling of the city at the time. Why do you think that the press didn't come to your rescue at that point? I mean, they enjoy it for a minute, but then support you. Why do you think that didn't happen?
Well, the press loved the story. It was the perfect story for them. The Sun and the Mirror. Here was sort of a very wealthy fat cat making fun of the poorer people, the customers. We were right in the recession of 1991, electricity bill. Here I was having contempt for my customers and taking the piss out of them, which was so not the case. It was actually a self-deprecating joke about a sherry decanter. But this was the story of, people's anger and just, if you like, a bit like Cummings today or Fred Goodwin during the banking crisis. It was somebody they could blame for the dilemma that we're all in. In fact, in the 1980s, jokes that people, including the Sun, thought very funny. But the mistake was this was when everyone was suffering in 1991 in a very bad recession.
So I'd like to come back to this, but can I go back to the beginning? So how did you do it at school? How did you do it at school? And did you have a plan as a kid to do this? Did you know of the jewellery market before you started your own business, or how did you learn it?
Well, I passed my 11 plus and I went to a grammar school with 33 people in the class. Do you want to guess where I came in the first year in that 33?
First.
Close, 33rd. And then I came 33rd the second term. And at that point, the headmaster called in my parents and said that unless he improves, we're going to expel him for the grounds of stupidity. You could do that in those days. That's the way people talked. So you wouldn't do it today. You'd have something like dyslexia or ADHD or something. But no, in those days, you were just stupid. And I came last again, and they expelled me. And that was quite difficult because, in the eyes of everybody and my parents, I was this idiot who came last. But the fact was that I wasn't interested in school in any way. I was interested in making money, in working. And so at the age of 15, I started working in shop, retail. I was doing firstly, I was washing dishes in a coffee bar working in a jewellery shop, serving behind the counter. And that was what I was really happy doing.
And did you have a plan? So once you'd done that, did you have a plan to start your own business? Was that always a goal for you? And
not
was jewelry...
really. No, I was messing around a lot. I was going to the betting shop. I loved gambling. And I still, well, business is a gamble, and there's nothing more. And I think that there's nothing more exciting than taking risks. A massive adrenaline rush to know whether you've succeeded in that deal or not. And it's a great feeling when you do succeed. And that's why I've been on this for all my life. And when I was running Ratner's and I was doing acquisitions and going to America, people say, you're mad. You know, you've got great business. You don't need the money. Why are you risking it all? Because when I went to America and opened shops there, if I failed, the city would turn on me with venom. Well, the city did turn on me with venom because of another reason, but they didn't turn on me with venom because of failure in America. So I love taking risks. And, but I was, so I was gambling. I was a lot of time doing nothing. But in the 80s, I could see friends of mine who were very young, who suddenly made a lot of money and were running public companies. And I wanted to be like them because I was still not like them. They had all the trappings of wealth. And it was a time that you could succeed in your 20s and 30s and build a big business. I mean, you could do audacious things. I mean, when I bought H. Samuel, for instance, we only had 150 shops and H. Samuel had 450 shops. You could make, outrageous acquisitions like that. So it was an exciting time, but I was being left behind. And I could see certain of my friends succeeding. At that point, I took it much more seriously.
And does that mean that you're driven by the success of winning or fear of failure?
Well, there's something exciting about that, about the fact that you could fail. It wouldn't be exciting if you were guaranteed success. So that is the risk is the turn on, if you like. It makes life very, very exciting. Now, there's a lot of people in business that don't like taking risks. But I don't think they're the ones that are really going to succeed. So it's like now, we're going to come out of this and we're going to have to change and we're going to have to take chances. And the worst thing that we could do is carry on hiding in our shell, and just carrying on and thinking, well, it's a dangerous world out there. I'm going to try and play it safe. That would be the worst approach.
I totally agree. So what would you say the essence to your success is? Were you a great manager or motivator of your people? Did the products do quite a lot of the work? Was it the fact that you just threw quite a lot of money to own the high street? If you could condense it, what might it have been?
Well, you could only raise money if you were successful. You couldn't just raise money. And we changed the formula of the way people sold jewellery in the way that, if you like, Freddie Laker changed the way that, we travelled, and Barrett did the house builders and bought cheap houses, Jewellery was the province of the rich, and all the jewellers were very, very posh with chandeliers and velvet pads, and everything was very, very expensive. Now, we completely threw that out the window. We played pop music. We priced everything. We discounted it. We were the first people. You see everything on the high street now at dual price. We were the first people to introduce discounts on everything. People won't buy anything today unless it's been reduced, unless it's sort of Ralph Lauren or something like that. But, as far as the general high street, we were the first people. We offered, every deal going. We were the first people to offer 30-day money-back guarantee. Now Amazon do it. Everybody does it. We threw the kitchen sink at it in terms of being aggressive marketeers, which was totally abhorrent to jewellery, where you had to be, subtle and subdued, and it was like going into a bank. So we threw all that out the window, phenomenally successful, because the demographics at the time were that, unlike today, it was the young people who had the money, the 16 to 24s, and they wouldn't be seen dead in a jewellery shop with a manager with a three-piece suit and all that business and an eyeglass. So we attracted the young people with cheap earrings, cheap gold chains. We completely changed it, and we was phenomenally successful. And that enabled us basically to hit our competition and eventually acquire them. And then,
which is interesting, because one of my questions.
More money. Sorry, we took more money per square foot than any other retailer in Europe. So it was phenomenally successful, and that's the sadness of the speech, that it was all, it's like the Titanic had hundreds of miles of pleasurable, uneventful cruising before it hit the iceberg, but people only remember the iceberg.
So genius. So one of my questions was being affordable ever an issue? So in my experience, people used to say something with jewelry back in the day. So having a bit of bling, I'm cool, I'm sorry, give us a shag, I love you. So through that, did you ever have any pushback through either your customers that you were making it so cheap, or were people just lapping it up?
Well, the thing is that jewelry was basically a once-in-a-lifetime purchase. A diamond ring when you got engaged, wedding ring, that sort of stuff. So what we did was we made it an impulsive purchase. We took all the diamond rings out the front of the window and we put in all the 99p earrings or £10 earrings. And they were all gold. And that was very good value. I mean, those 99p earrings, H. Samuel still sell, but they're 143 quid. So, we were offering fantastic value, very fashionable products, because there was a boom in the high street in the 80s. People like Topshop, Next, they were buying a lot of clothes and stuff because, as I said, the young people were earning money for the first time and they wanted to spend it. But they weren't buying jewelry till we started making it accessible. So price, but to make it accessible, to make anything accessible in the high street, it's got to be, firstly, high quality, which might sound strange coming from me, but it was high quality, and low price. A price is very, there's two or three things that are very, very important in retail. One is new. People haven't seen it before. The word new is very powerful. Low price and high quality. It's not rocket science.
And you invented the men wearing earrings, if I'm not.
We were the first people to wear to sell earrings for men. People thought we were crazy. I myself was modelled wearing an earring. There was lots of cartoons in the paper. It was in all the tabloids, and that was the thing. I was very high profile, and everybody said, be careful, Gerald. You're in the press, more often than anybody else, and they're only building you up to knock you down. And I thought, I've heard that one before. No, I'll just carry on, because sales. The more I was in the press, the more sales went up.
100%. Can I just talk about, because I would really like to talk to you about bounce back and dealing with the knockdown, but just in terms of the New World Order and what's happening with China and America right now, do you think that the whole jewelry market's going to change again because of that?
Well, the thing with diamonds, for instance, is diamond. They're just a bit. What are they? It's just a stone. It doesn't really have any intrinsic value. It's just the rarity that De Beers create that makes it so valuable. And at the moment, there's a massive glut of diamonds, which goes against everything about wanting to buy them, because you think the value wants something when there's a glut of it. So that is going to take a while to filter through. Now, everybody criticizes Donald Trump, but if you look at the GDP of China, well before this happened, over the last 5 years, it's just phenomenal. Growth of 13, 14%, where the US is 2 or 3%, we're 0. So you can understand why Donald Trump looking at those figures, is worried about China because they were unquestionably going to take over as the biggest economy in the world. Now, China's suffering a bit like I did. There's a backlash against them. Now, that isn't good. If we never, ever, when we were buying an iPhone or something like that, thought, oh, that's from China, I don't want that. But there are people who are thinking that now. This is a bit ridiculous, but life isn't fair.
Totally. So can we go back to the moment? It was the Royal Albert Hall, wasn't it? Yes. And after that happened, and then you speak very openly and honestly about this, and we really appreciate you doing so. But during that period of time, once things got tough for you, how did you deal with it? What lessons can we all take? Because it's been quite a hard time. I mentioned to you earlier that everyone's a little bit stressed at the moment, which we're having to look after our businesses, our finances, our marketing, and then our staff, and then our families and our children. It's quite a lot of weight on a lot of people's shoulders right now. Is there anything you could take through your experience that maybe we could learn from?
Well, I was isolating before it became... before you had to do it. I isolated for 7 years after the speech because the press said that I was unemployable and I was the pantomime, the joke, the butt of every joke that was made. You couldn't go to a wedding or a bar mitzvah where they didn't make a joke about it. Somebody once said that they attended a dinner with Prince Charles, and somebody stood up, one of the comedians, I think it was Ben Elton, said, I'm to comedy what Gerald Ratner is to jewellery. And Prince Charles, he said, laughed his head off. Everybody found it's amusing, except for me, because I'd lost my business, I'd lost everything. And I was totally, believed what was said about me, that I was unemployable. So for 7 years, I did absolutely zilch. And as I say, I was watching Countdown in bed. That was the highlight of my day. And it's very sad. But the problem is that you can get into a room with a smell, if you like, not literally, or maybe literally, but you're in a room with a smell. You don't actually smell the bad smell till you go out to the fresh air. You think this is normal. You accept it. And you can very easily get into bad habits like that. You accept a bad time, a bad life, because you think that's what it is, and you're too scared of doing anything. And it was only that my wife threatened to throw me out, actually, unless I got a job, that I did actually finally get out of that rut of watching Countdown every day, lying in bed, having no money, having debts, credit card bills, hopeless situation, no money coming in at all, about to lose, I'd already lost the house, I finally got off my backside. And sometimes you need somebody to give you a kick up the backside. And the one thing that was keeping me sane was cycling, which it still does to this day, and it's keeping me sane in the lockdown because I'm cycling 30 miles every morning. So I felt I wanted to go into it was 1997. I felt had in terms of stress and just feeling better, endorphins. It was the only thing that made me feel happy. So I
can you just? I don't want to steal your story.
No.
It's really interesting.
I'll try and cut a long story short, but I didn't have any money. So, but I found a site in Henley near where I lived, and it was a book warehouse, and it was $65,000 a year. And even though I didn't have any money, I said to the estate agent, I'd like to rent it, thinking that I would get 3 months rent free, and then I would be getting membership in, and I'll be able to pay the rent once. It was a ridiculous plan anyway. Anyway, they said you can only acquire this building if you buy the freehold. You can't rent it because your covenant's no good. But I said, I had 2,500 shots. They said, yeah, but you haven't got anything now. So I bought, it was £750,000, which I didn't have. So I went to the bank And the bank manager laughed at this, as a ridiculous idea. But I didn't ditch it at that point. I put an advert in the Henley Standard, the local paper, offering membership to this club, which of course was offering free joining fee, very generous of me. And on the basis, along with that free joining fee offer, with a half-page advert in the Henley Standard, was a picture of how it was going to look. And I just, used artistic license and made it look like the Ritz. And on the basis of that advert for a non-existent club, which I hadn't bought, it was just in solicitors' hands. I had no way of getting it because I didn't have the funds. I got 750 people to sign up. So I went back to the same bank, but he still turned me down. I went to 12 more banks. They all turned me down. The 13th bank actually said, Gerald, I'm going to lend you the money. I said, that's fantastic. Why is that? He says, because my wife's joined your bloody club, so sometimes you need a bit of luck. And I got the money, and 2.5 years later, I sold that club. Remember, the club I haven't put any money into to launch it for £3.9 million in cash. And it was just the most wonderful feeling after what I'd been through.
So that's resilience, keep trying, be creative, be innovative, have a bit of chutzpah and make things happen, yeah?
I think out of all of those, the chutzpah is the most powerful one. Sometimes you have to, if nothing else works, then blag,
Yeah, but I totally agree. Can you tell us about this book that you're writing?
If you play by the rules, if you play by the rules in America, well, we played nicely. They played baseball. In business, you don't play by the rules. You don't listen to everybody. And I would never have opened up that health club if I'd have gone down the normal route of, a lot of people would bring in people to survey Henley to see whether it's suitable, the demographics for a health club. Instead, I sold membership for a non-existent club. If I hadn't sold any membership, I'd realise there's no demand for a club in Henley. That's the sort of research that I love.
I love your style about that stuff. Can you tell me about the book that you're writing as well before we take questions from everyone else? That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. By the way, but this thing with the club of selling memberships that non-existent was nothing new for the way that I've always behaved in business. If I wanted to take a shop, before we bought H. Samuel, for instance, we were offered a shop in Worthing. And I said, do we want a Ratner's in Worthing? Is Worthing any good? So I thought, I don't know much about Worthing. So I phoned up H. Samuel and its head office here. And we want to check your figures for last week. We've got a figure of £12,000. So they said, oh, no, that's wrong. We took 19,000. I said, fine, thanks. Put the phone down and then took a shop in Worthing, realising that, if H. Samuel taking £19,000, we'd probably take 25,000. I wasn't breaking the rules or law. I did say it was head office. It just wasn't H. Samuel's head office. I've always pushed things to the limit. Now, as far as the book is concerned, I've written this book, and it is called Reinventing Yourself After the Coronavirus. I've been working that for 3 years. Obviously, I've now added the coronavirus to the title. It was just Reinventing Yourself. But I'm very much wanted to write this book for a long time because of the fact that in the olden days, we used to be in the same job for years and years. Now, you know better than anybody else, Gary. People are moving around at a much more rapid pace, and you're not guaranteed anything. And you've got realizing, just like I realized that lying in bed wasn't any good. Maybe that's an extreme example, but realizing that the job that you're in is no good for you. And you've got to take the plunge. My daughter was working for The Economist, which was fantastic, very prestigious, but doing nothing, going nowhere. And then she's joined a company called Lendable, where it's peer-to-peer lending, and she's making a fortune. She had the balls to leave The Economist to start in a startup lending money. She risked everything. you're just nothing if you don't do that. So this book is in part is a joint with a guy called Rob Moore, who's written a lot of very, very successful books. They're self-help books, if you like. And this is my experience about taking the plunge, because I think that when we come out of this, we're not going to just be able to settle back into what we were doing when it's obvious. The world has changed, and there'll be more fortunes made in this time of recession than any other time, because in every recession, that's when all the great businesses start and all the great fortunes. It's not in the boom time where everybody follows everybody else. So there are great opportunities there. And I feel the book is very topical. And I'm going to read it. My last book I read on Audible, people loved because they said it sent them off to sleep at night. So I hope this one is the same.
I totally agree. I think during every downtime or tough time, there are winners and losers, and you can go from mid-player to mid-team to be a Liverpool or Man City overnight. So I totally agree with that. The nice thing is in this group, recruitment is the true meritocracy. And if you've got the chutzpah and you're going to chance it and you're going to pick up the phone, you're going to work hard, you truly, truly can dictate your own future. You don't have to follow a linear line. You can jump from here to here if you've got the passion in you to achieve that. I've got some people who want to ask some questions.
Will be the brave ones.
Totally that. But go on, Gerald. Give us three things in terms of personal skill set at the moment that means that people win in a tough time. We'll start with bravery, because I think you're totally right.
Well, yeah, but don't forget that you can't just go into it like a bull in the china shop. I mean, business is a bit like an oil painting. If you look at a painting of Canaletto, the Grand Canal of Venice, Canaletto, the artist, had a vision of what he wanted to do. But you then look at the detail of all those canoeists, with the gondoliers, the muscles in their arms, the detail on the building. You've got to get it right. You can't just go in there and think, oh, well, the internet is a great panacea, or I'm going to just sell, anything. It's got to be researched. So you can then have the confidence in your new business, what you're doing. You've got to get it absolute. The first thing is you've got to get the basics right. And then I think, as I proved in the health club business, that it took 13 banks before they said yes, is not to give up. It is like a footballer, a striker who might not be scoring. I know you like your football analogies. You're Chelsea, aren't you?
Yeah, come on, you Blues.
Yeah. Well, it's a football analogy. A striker like Gerald, he couldn't score goals for a while. Now he's back scoring goals. That's what happens, in business. You can't succeed. Nothing's going wrong, but the thing is, you keep getting another go in life, and you don't give up. You keep going and going and going till you succeed. Don't take it personally because you keep getting rejected.
So I've got chutzpah, resilience, bravery, vision, confidence, research, and some smarts in there, because you're very smart. Before I offer it to everyone else, if you don't mind, can I throw it back to Dean? Because I know you two have a little love-in before. Dean, do you want to ask a question before I open it to anyone else? Yes, sir.
Was it all frozen?
Yeah. Gerald, you there? Sorry, you froze for a second.
Yes. Sorry, I've been here all the time. Yeah, sorry, I thought there was going to be a question. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to chuck a...
Yeah, Dean said...
Can you hear me?
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Gerald. Going back to your daughter and your daughter moving to a startup, I work in education. I've been carrying out some interviews with people who run community interest companies and leaders in education. And one of the thematics that's come across is that children, or the younger generation now, risk adverse. You know, if I haven't got a job, it's the government's fault. If I haven't succeeded, it's the government's fault. If there's a problem, it's the government's fault. And everybody's being wrapped in cotton wool. Do you think that Britain will struggle with this going forward, with the youngsters being so risk averse and not having that kind of chutzpah of the 80s of people coming out and saying, right, okay, there's a time here we can change, social mobility is going through the roof. Do you see that? Do you see a younger generation that are risk averse, aren't so keen to go out and work in jobs they don't know that are secure?
I think that's a very good point, Dean. And, you know, you listen to Radio 5 Live and everyone's phoning up saying, well, what a bad, you know, they got the short straw and that it's not fair and that, you know, they're being treated badly. But that actually doesn't get them anywhere. By being self-pity really is like the worst trait you can have. Nobody likes it. And I learned that. If I'd have moaned about what happened to me, I wouldn't have achieved anything. I would just be a loser. So, you know, I've always had the attitude that it's my own fault, but I'm a happier person than I was because of the setback. I know I don't look happy, but that's my face. I can't help it. But I'm a lot happier and contented. And sometimes you have to lose everything to appreciate. There is this attitude. Life's not fair. I fell over a cup at the age of 6. I said to my mum, it's not fair. And she said, well, life's not fair. And, you know, this by getting all sympathy is not going to get you anywhere. You just have to do it yourself. And I do agree with you about that. That is the wrong attitude. You've got to get your head right and your attitude right before you get anywhere. I don't want to sound too hard.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Brilliant.
Gary, you gonna throw it out and Emma unmute? Or?
Yeah. I've got 6 people have asked some questions, and I know we're on the clock. So if we just rattle through these, Rob Heseltine, do you want to just unmute and just ask your question, buddy?
Yeah. So since you coined the phrase "pulling a Ratner," what's been the top 3 pulling a Ratners you've encountered since yours?
Right. Well, on Twitter, every day there's at least 20, you'll see it today, 20 people that have said so-and-so's doing a Ratner, which is a bit actually wrong, because to do a Ratner, to be part of my club, you have to disparage your own product. You can't just say something stupid. When somebody just says something stupid, they say they're doing a Ratner, and that isn't right. I don't want to be pedantic or anything. Doing a Ratner is, you know, committing commercial suicide by criticising your own product and doing your own thing. Michael O'Leary's always doing a Ratner, but somehow he gets away with it, you know, and I think he's quite clever, actually, because he gets a lot of free publicity out of it. And the bottom line is when he makes jokes, derogatory jokes, like he says that we don't need 2 pilots, you know, in a case of emergency, one of the stewardesses could land the plane, or I'm going to charge her for the toilets and that sort of stuff. That gets across the whole time that Ryanair is cheap with those jokes. And that's all that matters when you're buying an air ticket, because you end up in the same destination. But with jewellery, it's exactly the opposite. It's the prestige. So although he might be doing a Ratner, he's much cleverer than me, because he's actually generating business for all that put-downs that he does about his own company. But, you know, there's so many on Twitter, every single a Ratner. When I wake up in the morning, I'm obviously a masochist, because that's the first thing I do is I go to my search Gerald Ratner on Twitter and I see who's done a Ratner today. And they're just endless people criticising. It's amazing. But it's only me that has suffered from it. I don't want to sound self-piteous after saying all what I said before.
I think, Gerald, just have your name as a Google alert. That takes all the pain away from searching. But literally, that was the most pedant thing I ever heard in my life. The definitive rule of a Ratner. I love you for that. Sibbo, there's a question from you, buddy.
Yeah.
Ian.
Sorry, yes, just to mute myself. So how does it feel, Gerald, to be immortalised as an adjective? Because you're going to live forever.
Well, funny enough, I did a speech for a university in Birmingham, and this professor comes up to me and he says, you know that they'll be talking about doing a Ratner in 500 years to come. There's still, it'll be, because we have it in our courses and stuff like that, our business courses. And I said, well, I expected to, have to put up with this till the day I died, but I wasn't expecting that I was still going to go on for 500 years after I died. And if you'd have asked me that 30 years ago when I made the speech, I would have been suicidal about it. And I was for many years. But if I've now turned it into somewhat to my advantage, because the health club, when I said that I sold that for 3.9 million, one of the reasons why it was very successful is because I got a lot of free publicity because of the crap speech. I also do speeches all over the world, all over the country, and I get a lot of pleasure making people laugh. After all, that's why I got into trouble in the first place. I was doing mentoring in the Cayman Islands in last year, and we had a day off, and this girl said to me, what are you doing on your day off? And I said, I'm flying to Dallas, Fort Worth, to do a speech. And, I'm 70, and I love, after spending all that time doing nothing, I love being busy. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that I made that speech. If I'd have just gone bust through, not having enough money or something like that, I wouldn't have had this silver lining. So the answer to your question is I have now come to terms with it. After years of pain, I now almost look at it as something that's not going to go away. So might well embrace it. And I've embraced it, and I've joined everybody else and laughed at it. And it's now, I'm not getting my £500 million back, which I lost when making that speech. £500 million I lost on my shares. But I'm getting quite a lot of it back. And I'm getting more pleasure. Never mind the cash, I'm getting more pleasure.
You will be immortalised forever. You'd be like the Beef Wellington of the business world. It'd be brilliant. So I'm chuffed with that.
That's a good one. I like it.
Could we just have two more? Because I've taken Gerald over our allotted time. So there's David Lawrence, Phil Ridgewell, Simon Noakes, Calvin David. Any of you two, go.
Yeah, if I could ask. Gerald, after that 7 years, was that the old Joe Ratner back when you got that health club? Was that you back to where you were? And what's changed about your leadership style now?
Well, to be brutally honest, I've talked a lot about having balls in business and taking risks. And when I was young, in my 30s and 40s, I took outrageous risks. For instance, I borrowed $500 million to buy a company called K's in America. Because I couldn't issue shares at the time. I didn't care less. I have lost, to be honest with you, after losing everything and not going on holiday for 7 years or spending having any money. I am now more careful. I don't know this because I'm older, but I now don't take the massive risks that I take. I'm more measured. I don't rush into decisions, which is probably a good thing. And I try and realise that I don't have to do everything instantly. So it was a more careful, once burnt, twice shy. I was a more careful Gerald than the previous maniac that I was, if you like. And I still am.
Which one did you like? Which one did you like the most?
I like the maniac, but
yeah, he sounds brilliant.
Yeah, I don't want to go back to that, Gary. I really don't want to go back to losing it all. It's a terror. Money, everybody, got it. It's realised the importance of it. And now I do appreciate it now much more.
No, I'll leave it there because literally you're one of the most humble, one of the most successful, one of the most brilliant guys that we've ever had as part of this. I'd be glad to call you a friend, but we'd like to lean on you over and over again. Thank you so much for being honest and we appreciate your story, your sense of humour, and you're one of the toppest guys. What's happened to me? I need to get back to work. You're one that.
Anytime, Gary. I love working with you and everybody, and thank you so much for asking me to do this, because I haven't been very busy lately, so I do really appreciate it.
Brother, look after yourself. We'll see you on the other side. Take care.
And you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Cheers now.
Cheers.
See you on the other side. See you soon. Cheers.